Welcome to the FTN Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined tonight by Chris Morgan and Val Heffelfinger.
30K all day.
Guess who's back?
I want to extend a very special thank you to everyone that is listening, everyone that has continued to listen to us over the years. Please give us a 5-star, max star, wherever you listen to us, reviews, and those. If you leave us a 5-star review in iTunes, for instance, or on any of the other aggregators that I get a notification from, I will read it on air. I may have to bleep some of it. But as long as it's a 5-star, it will get read on air.
Ooh, this sounds fun.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't know what I'm committing myself to here, but I'm ready. I'm prepared.
I'm gonna have to whip up a haiku about how much I like this show.
I put a t-shirt up on Teespring. The link will be in the show notes. You can find it under FTN merch, Forge Narrative merch on Teespring. I will link in the show. I'm giving Teespring a shot. I've read the reviews and things seem to be good. Other people seem to use them and to good success. A large portion of the funds come directly to us from Teespring, so seems like it might work out. If you have not checked them out, please do and let me know how it goes. I will also be putting links in the show and ordering one myself. That's one way to support the show. That's one way you can do it by buying something, but a way to do it totally free is leaving us those 5-star reviews and comments.
And then you get to hear our very own TPM read them edited on this show.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully they're all...
Put them on the show?
Oh yeah, I'll read them on air.
Oh, I get it. Okay. Well, that's a bit more spicy.
Yeah. Well, so there may be some bleeps, but hey, I want people to be able to express themselves as long as it's a 5-star. But keep it clean, keep it classy, But thank you very much, people, for listening. Like, share, comment, subscribe. It's just one of the ways that keeps us going and fueling over all this time. And people have been interacting with us, asking for list stuff. People have been asking about the tournaments coming up that we're involved in. Going to be going to the Barnyard Brawl here at the end of the month in South Carolina. I haven't quite decided on a list that
Ooh, indecisive.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about list design on the show today. So maybe...
Well, yeah, and have you guys talked about the new changes to the ITC Best in Faction stuff?
We did a little bit of that, about that last week or the week before, where we're talking about how to specifically get some extra life and things to look for if you're playing for that single faction stuff. I don't know that I'll be in that category with the list I take to this next tournament, but maybe, later on in the year as things develop, we're going to be helping spread the word about the Crucible like we did last year, coming up in October, and then the Coastal Assault, Armageddon Series Coastal Assault, coming up November 15th and 17th. Links to everything we know about those will be in the show as well. Coastal Assault's going to be in Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, you want to escape the cold? Come on down to Florida with us. And November 15th to the 17th, going to be a 120-person cap event.
Florida needs majors. That is a very nice thing.
I think there's going to be 3 there this year.
At least. Yeah, there's one in a trailer park coming up. Get into May. Literal Florida trailer park Warhammer GT. Couldn't be more perfect.
Is that the peak?
Guessing it's not hurricane season?
Battle for the Peak. That's right.
Yep, we're going to be talking about that. They may be joining the Armageddon series.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to them about that actually this week. I know we mentioned there's some competition for being Armageddon champion. Still working out the points. I want it to be similar to what we were doing for the fantasy draft that we did, where there's some fractional points that people can, basically difficult to collude, fun to speculate on. That's the idea.
That's always the best idea.
Well, I give away another excuse to give something away, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I love doing that. So
I'm just gonna go out there. Heffelfinger's gonna be stepping up to the TO booth himself. Last year I did a lot of hype for TGX, the Tabletop Gaming Expo in Toronto, Canada, in July, and I'm actually the TO this year.
Heck yeah!
It's terrifying, but looking forward to it. I'll have more information about that, I guess, in the near future, but it's going to be a good one. Perhaps Toronto's first major.
Can't wait for that. This is a heavily FAQ'd edition. It's actually easier to run an event now than it ever has been before because we have a lot of documentation on what the answers are.
And now I have a reason to read all of them.
Well, that's one of the beauties of this stuff. I mean, look, with the growth of the game and how popular just going to these tournaments have become and the size of the events, it's kind of like a rising tide, floats all boats. But one of the nice benefits of that is this is a heavily documented edition. So even obscure questions, what happens when I'm wearing orange pants and I jump off of a moving Land Raider? That may be in a fact somewhere.
Or you're in one of Paul Murphy's strange dreams.
See if I can sneak that into the feedback. What happens when orange pants Land Raider?
It might be there. It might creep in. You never know. But anyway, that's, good luck with that. And we'll definitely talk about that, more about it. All these tournaments as we get closer to them.
Because this is the meat of tournament season, really, coming into it now. It's
kicked off. It's in full swing. Yep.
All your regionals will start popping off. And like, just because of that, that rising tide, like the things that used to be RTTs or barely GTs are now majors. I know like there's just multiple events. I think this week there's something like 5 GTs in a major coming up this weekend. So there's just so much action out there. It's fantastic.
Before we start talking about list design, I want to talk about something rooted in our real world that's fantastical right now. We're recording on the day where the first pictures of a black hole were revealed. I think this is absolutely fascinating.
Now, how is that done?
Well, okay, you're going to hear probably the lamest explanation of it right now. But they used a lot of telescopes all over the world, collected, 5 petabytes of data or something? Is that, I think it says
it was a Tyranid swarm worth of bytes.
During the press conference, they said it was like 40,000 people's lifetimes worth of selfies.
Okay.
Of data.
Okay.
Well,
a ton.
Kudos to them for trying to make it relatable to all the kids.
Well, and then they compiled all those images, and it was weird. They were talking about how they needed pairs of telescopes to be and the weather to be good in different parts of the globe. The weather to be good on those same days, and they happened to get a little lucky, or this would have taken even longer for them to do this work. There's one in the South Pole. There's one in Chile. There's one in Arizona. There's a couple in Europe. I mean, again, they were all over the place. I watched the live press conference, and then they compiled all this data to get this picture of the event horizon and the sheer magnitude of the black hole. I mean, wow.
I think it's really cool too to just kind of point out what the black hole isn't like we're looking at it, but we are, because no light's coming out of it, right? We're just seeing all of the energy that's charged like around the event horizon as all the mass gets sucked into it. Such a cool photo.
One of the neat things, and I was actually thinking this when they were going through their explanation about how a lot of Einstein's theories and predictions they're actually proving to be true throughout their research, or proving to be at least not untrue with the science that they're doing. And I started thinking about it. Are we kind of predisposed to what the conclusion is? And so maybe we're not trying as hard. Now look, I'm certainly not accusing anyone of any of that. That's just what I was thinking during the press conference. And someone asked that, not exact same question, but something very similar in the audience when they got to question time. And one of the scientists gave a great answer. He's like, look, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, you could be as well known or as famous if you discovered something new or disproved one of his theories. There's no reason to come to those conclusions if they weren't true, if that's not actually where the science leads. And I thought that was a wonderful answer. But I wanted to at least take that moment to mention and celebrate that this discovery and the reveal of this discovery. I think this is an exciting times, and in a world right now where we're constantly bombarded with opinions and things, strife and controversies and turmoil. It was really nice to kind of see the world come together and be talking about this
thing. That's an even larger example of strife, epic turmoil.
But we get
a catastrophically powerful example.
But it's happening.
The universe always putting things in perspective for us.
But it's happening way over there. 55,000 light years or something. 5 million. It's way over there.
Probably a comfortable distance away from me.
Yeah, 55 million or something light years. Anyway. But that prompted me to ask on Twitter, in the 40k universe, does the Sol system have a Dyson sphere around the sun?
What?
Look, that's probably not even the first. That's not the first time I've asked that question. I don't think.
I'm more interested in the answers you got.
Well, okay. The answer is no.
How many Star Trek memes there were?
Oh no, it wasn't. It didn't blow up like that. But the answer is no, there isn't. And and I actually kind of prefer to think about the Imperium kind of brute forcing their way across the universe.
Well, they have to go through hell to get anywhere, so kind of explains their disposition.
Yeah, but there's all this speculation about the one Dyson sphere-ish thing that we think that we know of in the 40k lore is allegedly a Satan shard or Satan, full blown Satan. I think that has been discredited, but that is still a widely thought about object.
Yeah, that's some old lore right there.
Maybe the Tau babies figure it out.
Yeah, they could be. Well, and who's to say that the other races haven't done something similar? Like I don't know if there's any recorded stories about that kind of stuff. But also, they don't have to actually harness real energy, and that's just one man's theory of harnessing.
I could imagine some Eldar guy like devoting his seemingly immortal existence and reincarnations into figuring out a Dyson sphere and then getting bored and doing, getting bored is like, all right, well, that's not that interesting, and then moves on to something else.
For anybody that
creates a chaos god, something like that.
You have any idea what we're talking about? The Dyson sphere is a theoretical object that can contain a solar system's primary star, and use and harness 100% of the energy from it.
Yeah, I'm frantically Googling over here.
It is worth noting that there are a couple examples of the Imperium doing something similar. There's a Forge World that has a star inside, I wouldn't call it a full Dyson sphere, but they harness the energy of the sun. I'm trying to remember which one that is. There's actually rules for it in the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex. And then there's also a miniature star in the Blood Angels Librarius that was supposedly, according to the Mephiston book, captured by the Emperor and is used as a power source.
Yeah, why not?
Man, see that star over there? I want it.
You, Custodes, go get me that star.
Give me that star.
They would try.
Yeah. So that's the idea, is that we are limited by the amount of energy that we can harvest from our home, and so like right now we're harvesting, 2% of the world's energy, and that's why we can only get one robot to Mars, and then the more energy we harvest, the farther we can get out in the galaxy or universe or whatever. Yeah, I'm not a scientist.
Let me be very clear. I'm a sci-fientist, okay?
In a sci-fi universe, you can get to those things way differently. We're obviously not talking about warp travel, and I guess I don't know. I don't know that we aren't. Whatever. Again, I don't want to.
I think the Forge World, by the way, is Lucius. Forge World Lucius. Oh. For those curious minds,
famed for their drop pods.
Oh yes, and I used one of those to great effect at Adepticon. Let me tell you, these guys know what they're doing.
But yeah, anyway, so sorry for taking us way off on a tangent, but I did want to mention that moment because I think it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's been nice to see that as like the dominant feature on my media feed for today.
I would like to humbly request a second Adepticon somewhere in the next couple of weeks or so. That'd be great. Still coming down off my high.
Adepticon, the sequel.
Well, I got to meet so many cool people. I mean, I got to hang out with Joe from Fermentera for a little bit. Great sponsor of the show. Certainly had a lot to talk to him in email and on the phone, but haven't met him face to face. And happy I got to do that. And same with Jay from Discount Games. You get to hang out with these people that you mostly have a electronic relationship with, and get to hang out with them face to face. And even if it's just for a few minutes at these conventions 2 or 3 times a year, it's really neat.
I had a great chance to sit and talk at the Fermentera booth I think it was on Saturday. Yeah, I had a great little chat there. Really, really excited about that.
Joe's a cool dude. Coming off of Adepticon, as you know, I moaned a bit last week or the week before about not placing as well on the painting scores as I wanted to.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was pretty tragic. I'm not happy. I'm really not happy. But coming from the other side of it as an event organizer, and knowing sometimes that you don't get the time to dedicate to every army, especially when it's on that size, to really judge it as well as it should, I'm trying to be less salty about it.
if it makes you feel better, Paul, I thought that you put on a really good display. I thought the colors worked really well. I thought it deserved to be out in that hallway.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I feel that way too. Don't mind saying it. But it's the process of that, the sheer amount of effort. And I'm not complaining. Everyone's got to get their army that way. But, for me, and from, Jan 1, actually, I think it was December 29th to 2 or 3 days before the show, painting my behind off and then not doing as well as I thought it should, it kind of hurts the motivation some. And this goes back to an old finishing moves that we talked about. Like you can't just be fueled by the motivation. You've got to have some routine that gets you through and continue to going on. You can't let those things really set you back. And I'm not. And so falling back on some of the advice that we've given before, getting back on the horse by painting some Blood Angels.
Listen, let me tell you.
To Blood Angels. Paul's a bit depressed when he's painting up Blood Angels.
Well, I have the opposite feeling, but I do find that to be my happy place, And it was great because I did my Blood Angel painting before Adepticon, and it really paid off well. So if we follow that logic, I'm sure it'll work out for you, Paul.
It wouldn't be the international Warhammer 40,000 beauty pageant and bikini contest that Adepticon is without a little bit of salt about painting scores.
Yeah, a little.
So I'm glad to hear
controversy.
I haven't heard some yet, so this is good.
Yeah.
Apparently they fixed the terrain, so
terrain was good. Yeah, terrain was pretty good. Yeah, and I promise, this doesn't affect the way I feel about the event. It's had a great, it's always amazing. Sometimes it just happens. It just sucks when it happens to you. That's really what it is.
I think we also put a pretty high standard, we place a pretty high expectation on ourselves. Not only just because we enjoy the hobby as much as we do, but we're on the show here. We talk about this stuff all the time. We like to put our money where our mouth is, and I can imagine feeling, personal about, especially the work that you put into that. Cause I've watched you over the last 4 years, 5 years even, as you do your Adepticon prep, Paul. And it's this dedicated thing that you're always working towards. But this year, you put in, I think, more painted models for a brand new army than in any of the years prior.
Yeah, it was all brand new. All brand new.
Yeah. And there's always, especially when you're working with a team, there's always some last minute thing that pops up that adds that little extra stress that you're really trying to get it figured out, and you handled that like a champ.
Well, the other side of this, the positive side is that now the gaming club, we now have 2 fully painted armies that people can use and get out there and get some paint points playing tournaments that didn't exist before. 2 fully painted armies. Got a full 2,000 points of AdMech all done and a brand new 2,000 points of Guard all done.
Silver Linings Playbook, man.
Yeah, that's it. So, but what this actually has is a couple of members of our team that don't get out very often because they don't have a fully painted tournament army. Now we got 2 more to spare. Happy about
that. I think that is definitely that's a year-long win. When one of the things that I always struggle with watching other people hobby is I am a very sentimental person about the models that I paint. So the idea that, I'm going to spend all this time getting this thing ready and then I'm going to sell it because either, maybe it didn't do how well I wanted it to, or maybe I'm just squirreling onto another project and I need some funds to start that up. I have a hard time letting the models go.
Never sell.
So keeping something that you can use year round, and where it's a club thing too. I think that softens the blow quite a bit because that adds value that goes just beyond the one event you prepared it for.
That's it. Okay, so enough about all of that. Thanks for listening to us as we do that. Let's take a real quick break, then we'll come back and start talking about some real crunchy army list design and theories. Be right back.
FTN is brought to you by Discount Games Inc. Please visit them at www.discountgamesinc.com. And don't forget to ask Jay about ways to save even more on your hobby projects.
Hey everybody, we are back. I still got Val and Chris here.
My mind is a black hole.
And I am the Event Horizon.
That's a good movie.
Also probably based on 40k.
Yeah, has to be, right?
Not literally, they were inspired by. There's an interview with the writers of that film, and the depictions of the Event Horizon going through travel or fast and light travel is based on 40k the warp travel. That's why they go through the bad place.
I remember sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, that is what happens when the Geller field fails.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's up.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see there's that. It's either the writers or the director in like some sort of Comic-Con talking about it and their 40k influence. They're not like, yes, it's 40k, but they do talk about how they were heavily influenced by it. It's pretty cool.
Neat. Well, let's get into some crunchy army list stuff. I mean, with some of this is going to be in mind of a single faction build, I think. When
mine is.
Well, either when you don't have any allies that you can take in the instance of orcs. We're going to talk about orcs. That's actually, we're going to frame the conversation around some orc builds.
I'd prefer that if you could. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm cool doing that. But I also want to make sure that we mention the thought process of what to look for, because there's in this edition of 40k, there are kind of character archetypes, buffers. There's auras, they do this, and there's some commonality between the things. They're going to give you a +1 to this, they're going to give you a reroll to do that, or whatever. And
sometimes both.
Kind of your force multipliers.
Yeah, things that really help make you the most out of if you are playing for a single faction, how to do it, and then what your reasonable expectations of winning are. Now, I know we've covered this in various ways, but I think it's important to revisit this every now and then, and I want to talk about this in a way about specific list builds and why one might take something to their next event, or why they might build it to begin with.
I'm game.
Yeah. Well, you've been working on an orc list, so that's actually what got me thinking about this.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind. Yeah, and it even tweaked a bit since I last showed it to you.
Well, brand new orc list. That's actually what got me going. It's like your original one was. Now, I also, I felt like a couple of your choices were kind of questionable, but you had a method to it. You had a theory about it, and sometimes that's worth playing out. But what I liked about it was that it was kind of a new direction than what we'd seen previously.
My number one list building piece of advice is don't try and reinvent the wheel. Like, go out and look for what builds are actually doing well. And we have an incredible amount of intelligence right now. Not only top performing, aka winning lists, but also 4-1 style lists that could have won. You've got the Best Coast Pairings app. You've got a number of websites that are frequently reporting on actual lists. So just to let the audience in on, what I'm working on, I got a team tournament coming up, in May, and I'm going to play Orcs. And, one thing is with Orcs, and I think this isn't just me, I'm always down on myself. But this isn't just me. I think Orcs, one of their biggest opponents is the clock. And that's just a reality of a lot of the common builds, whether, it's 25 Ludas, 90 boys, and, probably at least, 60 to 90 grots. It's just a ton of models, 200 plus. And moving those around at the LVO was a blast. But, I clocked out and won one game. Stephen Pamperine, a very good orc player, he will, often play to clock out. So basically try and win the game before he runs out of time. And he's been tremendously successful. Almost got to the top table of Adepticon. He's, I think, one went away at LVO. So yeah, there's, the clock is a big deal for me. And so I went looking for list archetypes for orcs that were doing well. Right now you've got, essentially, the Luda based list that's very, very, very popular, triple battalion. You've got the type of stuff Pamperine runs, which is a double battalion brigade, which is just focused on getting as many CP as you can for that key unit with usually a unit of boys or what have you. But there's also one that hasn't necessarily won a GT, but is lower model count, and that's one centered around Mega Knobs, which are bad looking models. And they're really, really good, and they were probably model count of my army. So that's what got me going towards those guys in particular.
Certainly helps with traveling.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of fantasizing about it. I was thinking, how small of a case could I get this army into? It will still have to be fairly large, but yeah, that would be a nice benefit. But yeah, for me too, with boys, because orcs are actually, they're a closet shooting army. And a lot of times the stuff that boys boys would match up very well against, in my experience anyway, are killed by, Luda shooting, and the harder targets that they might, be needed to go take down are, going to be that toughness 8 target that a Luda isn't very good at hurting. and that your shock attack gun may or may not be taking out. By the way, was I ever wrong about shock attack guns? But we didn't know about the relic. We didn't know about the relic shock attack guns. But I'm even willing to admit, because I now have 2 shock attack guns in my list, one of which is not a relic, that perhaps even, taking 3 of them would have been.
I'm not going to, I actually am going to take this time to say that, I was also a proponent of Meganobs. I think they've been great even since the Codex came out.
Sure.
So now
Paul
Meganobs
is saying he's got some extra crow for anyone to eat if they feel like.
Well, we are theory crafting a list right now, but Meganobs, I agree with you. They seem to have some of the elements of what might perform right now. They might not have performed 3 months ago as well as they do right now.
I think there's a lot of legs to the Orc Codex. I think more builds will be discovered. This list in particular is very similar to one that threatened at CanCon, which was run by someone described by the people on the Down Under network as tremendously lazy, and he basically didn't want to run any boys. He ran like 3 shock attack guns, a big unit of tank busters, and 20 meganobs, and then a bunch of grots. That's essentially the meat of the list, and he very nearly got to the end with it. There was another one where I think it went undefeated in a Battle Points tournament in Europe. Very similar build. That one was almost cut paste. In both of those, they were using their meganobs as evil sons. I'm currently going to test them as bad moons. Reason being for that is just the duality of the grot screen, so that way I can use the grots as a shield for the meganobs or the ludas, depending on how I need them.
Yeah, your original list, if we can take it back just one step,
sure,
did not have ludas in it.
Didn't. No.
I think that may be a very shrewd choice, but now you've come back, you had a Gorkanaut in there, or a Morkanaut.
Yeah.
In your
I had a
original
Gorkanaut.
list.
I had a Gorkanaut, and I think I had combi rockets on 10 of the meganobs. And so the idea there was, is instead of investing CP into ludas, you're investing it into the meganobs so that they go up, they're double shooting, they're more decking, and they're, doing all the stuff ludas do. And they're actually hilariously shooting. So like a meganob, for those who don't know, is a 3-wound model, 2+ save, toughness 4. And then his gun is a custom shooter, which is 4 shots, 18-inch range. And then you can give him a combi rocket, which gives him 2 shooter shots, and 1 strength 8, -2, 3 damage rocket shot. So if you invest into those guys, so if you basically mob up, the 2 10-man units into that, and then, you double shoot them and you give them more DECA, they're blowing stuff up. They're doing some cool output. But I decided, and this is a key part, I think, of any list design, is once you've got all of your cool ideas on the paper and you think you got something nice, look at it and see what's cute. And to me, I think the Gorkanaut and the combi rocket idea, although seems cool and I'd love to play it, and I probably will sometime, seemed a bit cute, and I think I can get a better army if I take the things I liked about the Gorkanaut, which is like being able to hide my characters in it, for example. So it was a bad moon, so I, would be able to cram 5 characters in there and protect them from the new sniper meta.
Can we break down the cute before we get too far away from that?
Yeah, the cute to me is going away from something like Ludas.
Okay. But let's talk about, I guess, even more common, break it down a little bit more than that. That what you're talking about, if I'm right, let me know, is that these things they're either more win, it's like doubling down on something you already have, or they aren't things that are necessarily propelling you towards a win.
Yeah.
They're streaky. They're nice. What if everything lines up where it's great, then this is going to be awesome. But most of the time,
kind of like a gimmick.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those are 3 categories where where what you're describing as cute could fit into.
Cute is also, a less efficient choice that feels like it might fit. Like a Gorkanaut's shooting seems good on paper, but it just doesn't compare to 15 Ludas, right? And then like its transport capacity is handy, but I can't hide meganobs in it because they're units of 10. It only has transport capacity of 6. With the battle wagon that I put in there too, I can either deploy the Ludas or the meganobs in there. So I can put the Ludas and the characters in the transport, which means my meganobs, if they're on the table and being shot at, they can be grot shielded. Or it just gives me more options to go with a less maybe flashy thing. And also, if meganobs are in combat, which they should be eventually, they're not going to be shooting their combi rockets. So it's kind of lost.
I think I want to touch on I want to touch on what you're talking about here a little bit, because there's with the bolter rule now being mainstream in effect, it's something that's showing up in armies and starting to make a little bit of an impact. there's been some discussion here and there about the usefulness of Terminators. And what I feel like Meganobs have that Terminators don't are things that you're talking about. Well, for one, they've got the extra wound, right? And they've got the grot shields to kind of, protect them from some of the other things that might deal with that 2+ armor a little bit easier. Things like, say, Basilisk artillery from some of the Vigilus formations and things like that. The ability to kind of peel off those things that the Meganobs can't tank as well, especially with lacking an invulnerable save, makes a big difference. And Grots, so far as a not invulnerable save go, it's a pretty cheap investment for something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, getting back to Paul's original point about characters, so like in this game, a lot of, like, not every book really hinges on its stratagems, but the Orcs definitely want to have as much CP available as possible. So you need to have usually minimum triple battalion. There is a build that runs freebooters, which has 1 a GT, which actually has very little CP, and it's based off of, Gork actually really going heavy on Gorkanauts and Flyers. It's a totally different angle. Also lower model count, very successful. The Grots, like, how do I maximize the use of the Grots? Because I need to bring 9 troop choices. That has to happen. And if I don't want to bring boys, then I need to pick, for example, that led me to making 2 battalions Bad Moons, because I wanted to get the most out of those Grots as I could. Otherwise, because Grots can only shield for their clan, right? So that's why I doubled down on Bad Moons instead of doing the Evil Sons thing. I've got to actually play it out to see if it works. But I think that's sort of the idea, is trying to just finding all those little elements of the list that make Orcs good, and try and get as much value out of each one of those things as you can, because Orcs and their characters, again, you got to take them. The HQs, you need minimum six Orc characters in a list.
Well, that's to fill the battalions.
Yeah, that's to fill the battalions. And then on top of that, you probably want a Pain Boy. I bring a Wall Banner, which gives a bonus to hits. So, like, I've got 8. How do I protect them if the world's full of snipers? I can't grot shield just to protect one model. So yeah, those are all things that are going through my mind when I'm trying to put this thing together. And I'm a guy who doesn't get to play a ton of practice games. I get to obsess about 40k as much as anybody. I get to look at it on the internet and stuff, but actually, getting down on the table and playtesting things is kind of a luxury for me. A lot of times my tournament's my practice too, so I've got to try and think about this stuff as much as I can.
Let's talk about the evolution of the list from the original template. Yo, Paul, take a look at this. What do you think? This is awesome. I'm going to crack heads. And then the version that you eventually landed on that you're taking to that forward to build and get models ready for.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, what's that movie? I think it was They Live with Roddy Piper, where he puts on the sunglasses and sees the monsters. Or I think it's They Live.
Ooh, that's some obscure lore right there.
That's deep in the canon.
Well, well, you look at the list and you objectively look at it. You're taking the subjectiveness of the wouldn't it be cools, or is this really the right choice? And you've gone through it unit by unit. And I think that's something that we get, because this is something, the game, we romance about it. We fantasize about all this stuff, and like, wouldn't it, it's going to be neat. I'm going to get in the Skorkanaut, or when this, I'm going to play snipers all the time. And so I need this, and whatever. You get where I'm going. And that we build up what the scenario is in our heads, and that gives us our first list, and then we should go back and look at it again with completely objective eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in writing, in the active revision, it's kill your darlings, I think is the term that's used, right? Like, look at the stuff, look at where you're making those like, a lot, like, people who think they're doing the right thing, they're making a counter meta call, like Meganobs in general would probably be a counter meta call. If I look at the bad matchups for Orcs, there's basically 2 factions they lose against. One of them is Knights, pure Knight lists. So Meganobs probably does pretty good at that. Is the list giving up all the other things that Orcs are good at that allow them to right now be destroying every other faction in the game? So that's what I wanted to be careful of, because I didn't think that the answer was necessarily what my original choice was, even though also that army would look so cool on the
table. You got to start somewhere, though, right?
20 Meganobs.
I'm not saying don't put that stuff on the paper. I'm saying that once you do, then before you start building models, you should really evaluate this. with something like stats like we've been talking about. I mean, win percentage against other armies, figure out, what percentage of you expect to encounter in the tournaments that you're going to go to. And I don't mean necessarily looking at the internet or whatever. I mean, if you play in a certain area a lot, you kind of get a sense of what armies you're going to have to go through to get there. It's a little bit different when you're traveling and going to multi-location tournaments,
we're really getting, just that point. I know there's still obviously local metas and people are playing in stores and people have what they have, but we're really getting a global meta now, where especially at the GT level, at least, you're seeing, and this is fairly agnostic to format too. What performs well from like an actual finishing perspective is different. But if you look at the winners, the top table of Adepticon, Juice and Jim, neither of them modified their ITC list for that format. It was just a good list, and guys who know how they work. And if you look at even this Meganobs concept that I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure that the one that almost won in Europe was a cut paste of the one that almost won in Australia. So like the ideas of 40k are really being shared globally, and that's why for me, when I'm looking at trying to find, something that might work for me in my play style, like the first place I'm going is what are people having success with? Because I think that's kind of important. And, if I'm going to make choices that aren't the same as the ones that were successful, I got to make sure that they're the right choices.
Well, there's no shame in that. There's absolutely, you should do that. Especially if things are winning. If you want to be successful with X faction, then go to the source of that success. Who's winning with it right now? What are they winning? I can remember clear as day. I knew there was some period of 40k back in 3rd edition that I knew if I didn't bring a couple, at least one whirlwind tank from the space
Look out!
then I wasn't going to win the tournament that month. I knew that because I could look at all the other successful Space Marine players and they were all bringing whirlwinds. Had to bring a whirlwind. I did, and I'm pretty sure I won that one. But anyway, there's no reason not to pick up on what other people are doing and use it. So,
and I would let you know that if I had, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I had to upgrade 11. So I had 9 Meganobs, and I've got to build basically another 11, and that's not cheap. It's not cheap. I went with actual GW models, not like proxying in anything else. So like they're expensive, but I think the best version of this list is probably 30 Meganobs. Like
sprinkle in some of those ambots.
Yeah, apparently, like on a price per model basis, I'm pretty sure the Ambot is the same as a Meganob.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's crazy.
But it just looks cool. The parts seem like they just
it works really well.
Me for some orcs.
It's like a head.
I want to see them as Bullgrins. I want to see Ambots as Bullgrins.
That'd be a good bonehead, for sure.
Maybe not the Ambot, maybe the Ambul.
No, the Ambot. The Ambot has the Ambul the Ambot is a mechanized Ambul, but the pieces. It looks like it looks
very industrial, very
yeah.
Right.
I've seen them. I think it's basically like
as if anything isn't
to make it a war boss. Like it works very, very well. It's the plastic war boss that orc players have always dreamed of.
Just throw an orc head in there. You're good. Sorry, I took us off from talking about the list. So
that's fine.
You built the list, which was this is going to be great, and then you took another pass at it with the They Live glasses, and you've found ways to increase the efficiency. You've taken the cute out of it, using your words, and now you've come to the same concept, but you now have a more distilled version of it, and that's what you're taking forward in building.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be able to wrap it a little bit before lists get locked on the 20th. So I might be proxying some flash gets as Meganobs and trying it out. But yeah, I know I think it's a mean list, and I think orcs in general, there's a lot of different ways to play them. I'm not even taking that much of a gamble with the choices I'm making, which I think is good. I've missed having a battle wagon in my list, to be honest with you. It's a really handy tool just as far as a piece on the battlefield is concerned. It's not necessarily going to win its points cost back, but just in the things it can do with move blocking. It can block line of sight. It can, tie things up in combat. It hits like a demon prince. It's a super handy thing. So I'm actually really kind of excited to have that tool back in my army.
Nice. I think that we can take everything that we just talked about and apply it to other armies like Chaos.
Man, so I don't know how deep you are into Chaos, but I gotta feel like there's really cool, because I mean, just looking at all of the strats and the the detachment buffs that have come out and the new data slates and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like there's a lot. I feel like the style of certainly CSM builds is going to be very different going forward.
Well, okay, why do you say that? But I want to talk about how the process of how you just came to that orc list is especially relevant to building a chaos list also.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, okay. Well, what do you think the evolution is of the chaos list?
Well, actually, so I can see how all the pieces of the orcs fit together, because, I spent a lot of time thinking about it, but that's why I'm actually kicking this out to you if you have an opinion. Just okay. because like, just like orcs, like there seems to be now a lot of auras, a lot of buffing opportunities. Different units seem to have really benefited. Demon engines are so hot right now. And that's another thing, like people want to make it work. Like I love Mega Knobs. I want to make them work. I feel like demon engines are in that boat, and there's lots of things that can make them, better than they were. GT winning, I don't know, but like there just seems to be a lot of options that have been created, and I don't know. What have you seen people doing with it?
Well, let me start with this. The way you build a chaos list, you can easily just go option hack because of the way that they, like, say, Chaos Terminators work. I am not advocating Chaos Terminators as the be-all, end-all, but what I will say is that they do have a lot of options. So if you want to build an incredibly shooty list, that something that can shoot twice, come down and out of nowhere and blast people with all kind of plasma, rerolling ones with a buff character, so you can basically overcharge with impunity, you can do that. You can invest in that. If you want to build them in a completely close combat style of things, I really think that 10 Terminators with a pair of lightning claws each, buffed by casual characters you're taking anyway, are going to be wounding things on a 3-up. They're going to be wounding toughness 8 things on a 4 and 5 up with absolutely no effort and rerolling wounds at the neg to save. You can do that. Anything that can chew up a knight in close combat with that number of attacks can chew up lots of things. A unit of 10 Terminators will wreck a boy squad. I think it does some damage to Mega Knobs.
Just depends on who gets the jump.
Yeah, I agree. But the Chaos player has options now where they can compete, like the Dark Apostle. I think the Dark Apostle is a little bit of a point investment, but I think he's going to be a huge force multiplier.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say I build this 400-point Terminator squad, and then I go to try to invest another Dark Apostle into it. So now I'm looking at 500 points of something.
Is that 400 points getting you 10 Terminators?
I don't know. I think it's less than 4. I'm speculating. Okay. I'm investing a lot of points into these Terminators.
Got it. Yep.
And then I go to invest more points into making them work really well. I need to be dang sure there's not a better way of doing that before I take that to the tournament.
Correct.
And so that's why I wanted to say that the Chaos is in a very similar boat to Orcs. You almost have kind of an embarrassment of riches of what your options are. And so it's easy to kind of, I think, get distracted away from what's going to actually contribute to your winning.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of false positives along the way, too. And I guess that's just what iterating's all about. I mean, everyone's got, however they make lists, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or Battle Scribe or whatever it is, just sort of grinding through them. And some people, like you see online, I don't know, the various faction groups or maybe in your team chat or whatever, just spamming like lists with 2 or 3 things tweaked. It can go too far the other way as well. But I think it's all about, is there a piece that can be more efficient, and just trying to whittle that down. And sometimes that answer isn't obvious and is only revealed, once you're actually on the table. Like, and I might be wrong about it, but I think like a battle wagon's kind of like that. Very good orc player, Rich Kilden, never leaves home without battle wagons. And it's because of all the things that they can do that wouldn't necessarily appear from its damage output. It's from its usefulness, in 3 dimensions. And you wouldn't know that necessarily unless you've, actually gone out and played with it and done some tricks with it.
You mentioned the demon engines, and I think that the Codex demon engine options are, of course, going to get better when you can buff them. I don't know that they get buffed enough to be super efficient choices, but when we go to the Forge World demon engines,
yeah,
things get a little bit spicier.
Greater Brass Scorpion of Khorne.
Well, and even the Humble Blood Slaughterer of Khorne.
Oh, those things are so cool.
They're really cool looking, and I think there was like a very, very brief window when they weren't that bad.
Index 40k?
No, not even in. I'm talking about like in like sixth edition.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The first time I ever saw one on a table was very beginning of 8th edition, so that's why I said that.
Okay, well, I mean, I can see it. Well, the beginning of 8th edition was an excuse to wheel out whatever
Everything.
you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And and things were still all over the map point wise and stuff like that. I don't know how many points a Blood Slaughter of Khorne is. I can look it up in a second. Simply getting a +1 to its attacks. I mean, this thing could be swinging 7 strength 10 attacks that do 3 damage apiece, -3 AP on a 2+, and it gets the Legion keyword. Now I know it can't use a lot of the Legion traits or whatever, but things that buff something with a Legion trait would also buff this, or a Legion keyword would also buff this thing. Where I'm going as, look at this stuff. I think this is a lot more compelling than the other thing. And it also has the Bloody Rampage at the start of every fight phase where this model is within 1 inch of an enemy infantry unit. It gains +2 to its current attack characteristics for the duration of the phase. So 9 attacks at that profile.
What's the new guy? Like, I know he's the new hotness, but the guy who's also buffing these demon engines. What's his name again?
You're talking about the Lord Discordant?
The Lord Discordant.
The Vex Machinator, the Lord Discordant.
Yeah.
On Hellstalker.
Yeah, on a Hellstalker. Good times. Yeah, he seems good in mass. Like, I think in Force he's going to be an interesting one. Just because although he's not obviously resilient, he does regenerate a lot, and he hits like a dump truck. So
I wrote an article on this guy.
Going to be out there.
Yeah, I wrote an article about this guy, and he has some tricks. You really just have to get in it. You have to invest a little bit in protecting him in round 1. I think you also need distractions. You need something else for your opponent to shoot at. I think you can do that with some forward operatives from an Alpha Legion detachment. I think you pretty much always want to take the Alpha Legion detachment. I think there's a compelling argument to take, what is it, the red?
Yeah, the Renegades one. Yeah.
Yep.
It gets him 8 CP.
Yep. For that, whatever, he takes 17 models to get a whole bunch of command points.
Yeah.
I don't, the Red Corsairs. I'm sorry for blanking on those for a second. But I don't know that they're going to replace the utility of the Alpha Legion for what you can do with those command points, and then again taking some heat off of the Lord Discordant in turn 1. But the Lord Discordant can do a lot of damage. This guy puts out tons of attacks that all do good things, and then when you put in a Nurgle Demon side of things to get some psychic powers on him, that then allows him to do double damage on wound rolls of 7+. You give him a +1 to wound with and then at 7+ doubles his damage. This guy is doing, it's like 20 something points of damage to a knight.
Yeah, no, he's vicious
by himself.
Vicious killer. Yeah, imagine 2 more of him.
Well, right. Or if you put
how much is he under 200 points?
You can build him for about 160 points.
Yeah, like I mean that is nothing. Like that is a very very cheap useful unit. It's a boon. So
then you put him next to this the Humble Blood Slaughterer of Khorne. It's only got 10 wounds. It does have an invulnerable save with a 3+ armor save, but that thing, I mean, he's slicing and dicing with a 2+ weapon skill, and he gets his Impaler Harpoon that it hits on a 4+. That's the thing. In previous editions, it like hit on a 6 or something. wasn't amazing, I think. But now hitting on a 4+, then moving up to a 3+. Which gives him a + to his charge rolls. If the bearer charges a vehicle or monster unit it has previously successfully hit with his weapon in the shooting phase, in the same turn, it can add 2 to their charge rolls. And that thing is a strength 8, -3 AP, 3 damage, 12-inch weapon. That was hitting half the time. Now it's hitting 66.6% of the time.
Yeah. He's 165, by the way, the Blood Slaughterer of Khorne.
Oh, what a bargain! I think he's hands down better than Mauler Fiend in this situation.
Yeah, I've seen people wanting to make that happen.
Yeah, I don't mind that choice. The model cannot fall back if it's within 1 inch of an enemy infantry unit. I don't know why it would want to, but I guess I can think of a lot of tactical reasons why you would. I know I want to be swinging with all these attacks. When the model advances, you add 6 to its move characteristic instead of rolling the dice. So whatever, it can get places.
Just don't outrun the tarantula spider creepy guy.
Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about the Khitan.
Yep.
with the Demon Engine. That moves this dude hitting on a 2+. I mean, again, it's just a big multiplier. So when the Khitan has the Legion rule also, so these are things that you're turning these things in to reliable things for you. You're taking the streakiness, the variance, like we were talking about in the last episode, smoothing the variance. You're taking it right out with things with choices you're probably taking anyway. You're going to be taking Demon Princes or Chaos Lords. If you're taking one of these things, you're probably taking the Lord Discordant without even thinking about it.
I'm looking at the Khitan. He's got he's got his Gatling cannon, and he's got his melee weapon, which is 3 times. How many attacks is he rocking?
5 attacks.
So he's got 5 attacks. Yeah, he could do with some buffing because he's.
Well, with the cleaver, you can choose to make 3 hits.
Yeah.
Instead of just the 1, so it turned it into 15, which they're -2 AP, D3 damage. It's kind of like the Stomps.
Yeah.
But it's with his great cleaver of corn.
Yeah, I feel like he's just missing something. A little je ne sais quoi, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's like a little over 400 points, and he's 410. So he might, even if you're, oh man, I want him to be cool, because he looks so cool. There's so many models that...
He can shoot out of combat, I believe, if I remember right.
Yeah, he's got the Demon Engine, the Titanic sort of basic rule set. Yeah, he's, 22 wounds. So he's less than a normal knight. I'm looking at the right guy. Khitan Ravager? Is this different than a regular Khitan?
That's it.
Yeah, he's a little nerfed off a normal knight. He's got 22 wounds. He's T8, 3 up, 3 upper bliss skill and weapon skill. Movement 12. Man, they just need to add 1 to a bunch of these stats, and he'd be good to go.
or double the shots on the weapon.
Yeah, yeah. What about that Lord of Skulls?
Okay, Lord of Skulls is also Demon Engine.
Yep. I ran into this guy in a back alley once, and it wasn't cool because I just thought he was a complete chump. And turns out he had some moves. So I'm curious to see under this new frame of reference what we're looking at here.
The Greater Brass Scorpion. I don't know what the points on. Can when y'all check the points on the Greater Brass Scorpion of Corn?
Mm-hmm. Give it 2 shakes.
Heck of a lot of attacks, quality attacks.
Greater Brass Scorpion Corn checking in at 650 points.
That's so many points. But
tipping the scales.
Okay, 3d6 charge, so he can get out there. He's got a little bit of psychic defense, and he's got a boatload of strength 14 attacks that do 6 damage apiece.
He's got 8 attacks base.
Yeah, that's 8 attacks base, but then he'd be hitting on a 2+ with neg 4 AP, strength 14. So you're wounding, most things on 2s, heck of a lot of things on 3s. And at 6 damage apiece, that's going to add up.
Yeah, those Hellcrusher claws mean some business, don't they?
Well, his Scorpion...
And he also has got some random shooting, too.
Yeah, heavy 10 on his Scorpion Cannon, which is strength 6, neg 2 damage apiece.
Yeah. So what other way? Yeah. Oh, and he blows up big.
Oh, does he? I don't remember.
Each unit, so if the models reduces 0 wounds, roll d6. On a 4+, it explodes, and each unit within 2d6 suffers d6 mortal wounds.
Oh, on a 4+, yeah. That's a pretty good explosion.
And he's basically a Calexis. Is that correct?
He gets a little bit of psychic resistance.
Yeah.
It's okay. When a Psyker attempts to manifest a psychic power that inflicts mortal wounds on the Greater Brass Scorpion of Corn, the Psyker suffers perils of the warp on any double, not just 1s or double 6s.
Oh, can't be buffed by friendly psychic powers, but can he be buffed by the chaotic war priest?
Yeah, he's got the Legion keyword. He'd be a friendly Legion something.
I wonder if these data slates will get a little revisit. Sure, hope so. And if there's anything in the Dark Apostle stuff that says infantry only, of course, it wouldn't work for this stuff. I don't know. I can't remember if it does, but I think it's just Legion things. But how cool is it that this new codex is inspiring us to look at something that came out and has not been touched really since the beginning of the edition? Yeah. That's the most beautiful thing about new rules. It's just going back and reframing and thinking about stuff. Like something that came up the other day with this completely tangential, but nonetheless just something that never occurred to me is Orcs have an ability for characters to fight or shoot in death, and I had only thought about it as fighting. Turns out you can shoot your shock attack gun when he's about to die. And that's obvious, but because I'd never thought of it in that frame of reference, it never occurred to me. So, like, going back and really trying, to fit different pieces of the puzzle together is like a really great way of finding neat things. It might turn into what eventually is determined to be a cute idea. But nonetheless, it might put you on the right track to finding a good efficiency for your list.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. So the concept that you're talking about with the Orcs applies to any list that has this kind of bountiful options. And if you're trying to play within, we talk about single faction, but I think the Orcs are kind of meant to be. I think they have their soup all built into their codex.
Oh yeah. But I mean, they were built, I think, with, well, who knows? I mean, we can only assume. Maybe they just cranked them up to 11 by accident, but they have choices that are viable that fill every role that they need for the most part. They're active in every phase. I think that's another reason why, beyond the model count, why Orcs play slowly is that everything's moving, everything is psychicking, everything's shooting, and then everything's charging and everything's fighting. So you're active if you're not careful, every single phase. We're a lot of armies that just spot you a phase, like they just don't participate.
Yeah. That's another good thing in list design that I know we've talked about in the past, but it bears revisiting, is if you are consciously omitting a phase to participate in, I think you've got to make up for it in other ways, and that may factor into how you actually design your list.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may choose to completely forego, like say the psychic phase or whatever, but you've got to make up for it in some other way. And same way as shooting. If you don't pack a lot of good shooting, or let's say you're all just short range shooting, you have no mid range, or maybe you're too split up. You got a little bit of short, a little bit of mid, and a little bit of long. What are you compromising?
Yeah. And is that going to be something that you can actually work with, in 3 dimensions on the game state? Like, I used to do that all the time. Like, I think good players really value range. I think that's a truism. Like, just the ability to reach out and touch anything on the table.
It gives you options.
Gives you lots of options. But I think, whether it's a combination of movement and the ability to shoot, or just the ability to, why is a Castellan so good? Well, it doesn't have to do anything. It just stands there.
That's one of the reasons the Valiant is not as good.
Not good.
I mean, that's really the case. The Valiant could just be stymied by somebody putting a 10-man squad just in his way, so he can't walk around them to get his shorter range weapon in. I mean, that's the cold hard facts.
Yeah. And out of the box, the Valiant looked super cool. It had the harpoon. It looks like it could deal a lot of damage. Well, only if it happens to be near what it wants to kill. Castellan can kill whatever the heck it wants. And Ludas are the same way, 48-inch range. Before the Codex game, Orcs really didn't have that long-range shooting answer. And now they have shock attack guns, which are 60-inch range. They got 48-inch range, and they can just chill back there, blow you up while the boys come and finish the business. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, range is a big deal. Mobility is a big deal. And being able to get around the table and see that in space, once you have your ideas, you maybe don't realize that until it's actually down the table. It's probably what got me into trouble with Fire Warriors.
I counsel people when they're talking about taking units this is not so much a factor anymore, but I still think it's relevant for your ability to really threaten things, is say you're taking a unit that can take multiple heavy weapon options. Mm-hmm. This is one thing that trips people up all the time. How do they mix and match those things? What do they take? I think that you really need to have some redundancy in your range bands. And that could be meaning all 4 of them or however many take the same weapon. So you can say, I'm going to put all of them in one place. Or you at least have two of each of a specific profile, a range and strength and damage type in option or in units where you can take those types of options.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to overlook too, because there's some really heavy hitters that maybe their range is sort of 24 inches, or something like that, and oh man, if I get them within 24 inches, it's going to delete whatever's there. Well, you just may never be able to get into that threat range that you want, because, the board becomes a lot bigger to your opponent when your ranges are small, because there's just so many more places they can go to get away from you. Whereas sometimes I fight Eldar and it just feels oppressive because there's nowhere to go. They're always in range or within striking distance with movement.
Their threat range is there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the overall effective threat range is I think a big thing too that some people may not consider as their movement, and then do they have to move? Do they take the minus, for heavy weapons? These are all things that just influence your list choices for what you expect to be able to reasonably accomplish over the life of a game.
Yeah.
Man, well, thanks for walking through your list.
I think we solved it.
And giving us an opportunity to talk about some of these things.
Well, thank you. I have now led our many list a horrible rabbit hole that may or may not be a bad idea.
Well,
Also,
if they
remember, guys, I'm also, this is also the frame of reference of a team tournament too, right? So I'm able to control my matchups a little bit better. Although, to be honest with you, I am really excited for the list.
Well, if they don't take anything from this conversation, it is the get the first pass done, objectively look at it, figure out what you reasonably expect to accomplish. I mean, I think that's basically it. I mean, what do you want this unit to do, and can it actually do that? And if you think that your one last cannon is always going to do 6 wounds, it's not. So how do you make sure that you've got the ability to actually wound things and finish things off? And you're talking about moving out of range. I mean, that's the thing. There's nothing more frustrating than getting a unit all the way down to one dude and then having him limp away and you never get that kill point, or he moves behind a wall effectively out of the game, but what he's really doing is scoring points on a progressive objective or something like that.
Yeah. And another key here is once you have that solid draft, spam your friends, and they can help give you some ideas too.
Well, back to this kind of one wound thing or whatever. Once you've done that to a player, like say you've gotten that guy down to 1 wound, he then has no other option but to hold him back and claim that objective and just rack up that point every round. If you completely eliminate that unit, then he has to dedicate something that he was planning on pushing forward into your face back to try to hold that point. So make sure you can, I mean, I know obviously the objective is to kill as many of your opponent's models as possible, but you need to have the right tools to do that. And
the objective is to score more points in the mission.
Knowing the odds. This came up in the team tournament that we did at Adepticon. It was, do we dedicate these Castellan, the full might of these Castellan robots and burning stratagems and stuff that let them shoot twice at this one unit of Meganobs? Do we invest that into that? The answer was yes, because Meganobs are very resilient. And you need to get him down as fast as possible. And
they probably felt the same way about your Castellans.
Yeah, and it may sound like that 108 shots or whatever is enough to kill anything, but it isn't. And until you've objectively looked at that, you don't know that, or until you've run it through the play test 2 or 3 times, you don't know that. And knowing that it's not enough, you may choose to pack some other things, and it may also influence when you activate your units for shooting.
Yeah.
So anyway, a lot to keep in mind. I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, so I appreciate y'all listening to us and allowing us.
I believe you were trying to say, kill it till it's dead.
Kill it. Well, have the right tools to kill it till it's dead.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah, and figuring out what that actually means. I personally like to pack a little bit of redundancy into my army. I would not like to have the only thing that can shoot the Castellan phosphor blaster range be the Castellans. I'd like to have some other reach out and touch someone ability for when there is one straggler Meganob that didn't go down.
Yeah, and that's why things like mortars are ubiquitous. Like they can reach out and touch anything all over the field, clean up the backfield. Lots of different solutions. And actually, I think this is just getting back to list writing. When, I think you see a lot of people like on boards and stuff being like, oh, everyone takes that. Well, usually there's a reason why. And it's not just because it's like underpointed or whatever. They fulfill very useful things. And that unit that a lot of people take probably fills a couple different roles in a list, whether it's filling out a org chart or providing that, ability to just camp out and plink away, whatever it might be. The things that become the most popular, generally speaking, are able to fit multiple roles in a list. And that's why they are what they are. And when you go away from those choices, you get a little cute. You're giving up some of that utility invariably.
It's a great thing to end this segment on. We're going to take a quick break, then we'll come right back for another brief segment, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sounds good.
We're sponsored by Terra. With their sturdy, lightweight and portable tables, you can make war anywhere. Please visit them at www.firmaterra.com.
Hey everybody, we are back. Chris, people may be able to hear you coming up pretty soon, if it's not this week or I guess soon, on another show.
Yeah, coming up in the next couple weeks, I did about a 3-hour spot on the Age of Darkness podcast. Talking with, you've probably seen some of his work, Miles, a very talented commission painter from Little Legend Studio, invited me on the show to talk about the new Blood Angel stuff and Horus Heresy Book 8 Malevolence coming in hot after Adepticon.
That dude does phenomenal work.
He's an amazing painter, and I've been convinced to borrow. Convinced to borrow might be a weird way of saying it. I love his marble technique, and I'm stealing it. Let me just come out and say it. excellent stuff. We had a really good talk. We talked a lot about the rules for the units and the models that have come out so far, in addition to some tactica, some general tactica, and we reviewed some of the new juicy lore tidbits in the book. Nothing too detailed, and it felt like it went by in a flash, but it was 3 hours long. These books are just so jam-packed full of cool things, and it was really neat to be with a fellow super fan, talking about this kind of stuff, someone who had also been digging in deep, and we were able to really get some neat insights, I think, and it'll help people with their list building going forward. So lots of stuff still to cover yet.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Can't wait to check that out. I want to re-mention these tournaments again. Coming up on April 27th and 28th is the Barnyard Brawl Gaming Convention. That's in South Carolina. You can find more information on that at the barnyardbrawlseries.com. I had a great time when I went in November. Looking forward to going this time, cracking some skulls. I'm going to be swinging for the fences. Still don't know what I'm taking, although the conversation we just had was, I also found that very enlightening, and it's kind of really cool to revisit those fundamentals.
So, give us a little tease. What are you thinking? Which way is the Ouija boy pointing in your hand?
Well, look, I wouldn't mind taking the Inari for another ride.
Potentially one last ride?
You never know when things are going to change.
There's a foreboding preview on the back of White Dwarf this month.
Yep, so I wouldn't mind at least playing them as I know them right now, but maybe with some twists. I feel like I'm weak to some of the orc builds out there, so again, if I feel like I'm going to reasonably encounter some orcs, then I need to mix up my stuff if I plan on picking up a win in that whatever round that happens to be.
I think a good way to handle it is just bring some Drakari with you and veck the hell out of them.
That's not a bad way of doing it, but I still think that their normal shooting and just normal bodies on the table may be enough to give my current build a bit of a hassle. But that is an option. That is an option. And so that's coming up on April 27th, 29th, 27th, 28th. Hopefully I get to see a lot of you guys there. And then I want to talk about the Armageddon series Coastal Assault coming up November 15th through the 17th. Tickets are for sale right now up on the Facebook event. I will link that into the show notes. If you think you can get to Florida and join us for that tournament, it's going to be a fun time. Look, I put on fun tournaments. I've been putting on fun tournaments for years. Never let anybody down who's come to those tournaments. This is another one of those. It's going to be a blast. I guarantee it.
There were a lot of guarantees in that paragraph.
So many guarantees.
Like a wrestling promo. Oh, yeah, going to be the best tournament you've ever been to.
You're going to get a great deal on a car, and you're going to have a great time at a tournament.
Look, I'm not going to try to run one of these things that's not going to have a good time. That's it. I mean, why do we go to make memories. We go to make experiences. We go to make new friends. We go to beat the ever-living crap out of our friends on the table. That's all going to happen.
Throw it down. Where in Florida? What's the location?
Fort Walton Beach. It's on the kind of the Panhandle area.
Oh, yeah.
There's an airport near there. I don't know how the flights go for places all over the place.
It's just airboats, though. I don't think they have.
They do have actual planes that go to there. It's not that far away from me, so hopefully draw a bunch of the Florida crowd. Hopefully draw a place from everywhere. I'm guaranteeing it's going to be a fun time. Well, one because I know everybody running it, and I know how we like to party down and roll dice, so it's going to be great.
Maybe you two can see Florida Man in action.
Yeah, right. I think what's the thing? Google Florida Man in your birthday. See what fun treat.
Listen, Paul, if you become Florida Man, I may disown you.
Well, watch the news that weekend. That's all I can say.
Maybe that's the secret of Florida Man. He lives in Georgia.
That's right. He's come in and out.
It works.
The ATC is coming up.
Now that is a bucket list event for me.
We're registered for that. It's a 5-man team event. I actually was talking to some folks last night. They were coming out for their first time to this thing and just wanted to get a little bit of the lay of the land. Happy to do that for anybody who's curious about that.
Yeah, I was talking to Chris while we were at Adepticon. Wanted to see if I could make it out there, but the timeline didn't work out. But just like good old Val here, it's definitely a bucket list event for me. I'd love to come out. Sounds like a great time.
Yeah. So, and then don't forget to check out some t-shirts if you are so inclined. It's a great way to support the show. But please, we live off of the 5-star reviews that we get. That's one of the easiest ways to help spread the word, how people get to hear the show and come check us out and leave their own 5-star reviews. So, keep that trend going.
Then we put a list on your offer. If someone leaves a Lord of the Rings themed, then I will read it in the Gollum voice.
That's not happening.
Oh, come on. Don't deny the people.
I want to talk real briefly about the hobby segment again, trying to, find ways to get myself back into it, and not having the right tools can be pretty frustrating. And what I learned over the course of this big hobby build that I did is letting the tools do the work. And the paint handle with the grips on it, if you don't already have this thing, it is completely worth the investment.
And you're talking about the one that has the little adjustable arms that let you set pieces and glue stuff together, right?
Yes. Those,
Okay.
They're on like ball joints. It's segmented ball joints that go out to clips. They hold their position. They work like an absolute charm. If you want a product that just works, this is it. Trying to glue metal pieces together, trying to kit bash even with plastic, because plastic glue doesn't set immediately if you're using that. These little clips hold the pieces in position. You get to put the model on the base, slide, it stays firm in there, and the bit stays exactly where you press it. I can't recommend it enough. I think I've recommended this thing before, but I broke it out again for some things I'm building right now. Also building some Orcs, Val.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, unless you have like 2 dozen of those things, I don't know how it works. That's why I like the painting stick with the double-sided tape. That's my approach. Work on like 8 guys at a time.
I've gone to that's how I prime now. I get the double-sided tape, the mounting tape or whatever.
Yep.
Put it down, line up 20 to 40 models, depending on how big they are on both sides. Spray them down, and if the tape's good enough, if I got a good enough mount on there, then I also wash them and do the first layer of wash on there.
Oh yeah. No, I'll paint the whole model just on there. Like when I did my grots, they were all on the painter sticks. Like, you know what I mean? Those like big those things for stirring paint up.
Yeah.
When you get
And they're free. You can get them from hardware stores. Just like, can I get one of those big sticks?
Probably the same place you get your mounting tape.
Yep.
Free add-on there.
That's it.
Boom.
Well, guys, that's all I want to cover on this episode.
Real casual.
Yeah. Anybody else got anything they want to add before we wrap this up?
I do.
Add it.
5 petabytes. Petabytes?
Yep.
5 petabytes is 5,242,880 gigabytes. And that's how much data was necessary to image a black hole.
It's amazing times, dude.
Yep. Me, I submitted my paperwork for Battlehaven this week. So that's the next on my list of events. And boy, am I looking forward to it.
Let's get Sarah back on to talk about it.
For sure, man.
Well, you guys have a good rest of y'all's night. We'll see you next week.
All right. I'll see you.
Have a good night.
Handle the truth.